Blog Talk Radio.
Are you ready? The champ is here! It's just a man! Give me a hell yeah! What the rock is cooking? To be the man, you have to be the man! Big bubble pump! If you hook up! Coffee in the big day.
It's Sunday, and you know what that means. Famcast Media proudly brings you the latest edition of Working the Marks. And I am New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist and now top 100 Latino, once again, via the Latino Spirit Online magazine, the Professor Fernando Uribe, and he is New Jersey's premier wrestling analyst, the VCR superstar, Vincent Kenny Rivera, joins us here this week, my brother in broadcasting. What's up?
Kennedy with the C. Let me tell you something. You can't trust guys who wear slip-on shoes, all right? If you don't got time to tie your fucking shoes, I don't know, something's up with you, man. You know what I mean? But,
well, I mean, we are living, well, in a lazy generation. Millennial, Generation Z, they're very lazy. So, I mean,
yeah, Gen X, too. Gen X is pretty fucking lazy, too.
I love tying my shoes. It's therapeutic for me. I still do very. Yeah.
Did you wear shoes that you tied when you went to that wrestling show? When you went to go see your buddy there?
No, I wore shoes. I wore men's dress shoes, I guess, with jeans, I guess,
Slip-on shoes?
Yeah, because that's what dress shoes can be.
They can't be that. You got to tie them up, bro.
They can.
Fucking Vans are slip-ons.
They're
slip-ons.
They're Kenneth Cole men's shoes.
Lazy.
They're not bad.
Lazy. It's lazy.
It's not lazy. It's stylish.
Where's this saying? Slip on your shoe. Tie your shoe. Tie your shoe's a fucking saying. Slip on your shoe. Slip on your Vans. Okay. Slip on your Vans. We're gonna go to the beach and get stoned. That makes sense. Slip on your Kenneth Cole shoes. No, tie your Kenneth Cole shoes. That's what you do. You tie them. But anyways, whatever. I understand. Hopefully, if I make it to your age, if I don't spontaneously combust, which is true, it's been reported. Do your research, people. I will get shoes that I'll tie. But then again, I might have those back pains that you have now at your age, at your advanced age. So,
listen, having to carry some of the media brands that I carry on my back, hey, I'm just going to have a slip disc. Just saying.
Man.
Just saying.
Well, I promise you this much, Professor. There's nobody taking any bong pictures here, okay? That's all I got to say. So
that is true. And folks, check us out on all of our social media. Sharing is caring. You're doing it live right now on YouTube as well. Also on Twitter. Follow us, folks. Shoot us a DM. Contribute to the show. Shoot us an email. Tell us what you like. workingthemarks@gmail.com. What you like about us, what you don't like about us. Hey, we love to hear feedback. We're not fickle. We're not easily triggered. We take all criticism constructively. So write to the show once again, workingthemarks@gmail.com. Folks, a lot to unpackage today. A big week in the wrestling community. Obviously, a lot of news to break down. Pat, very interesting here. AEW potentially did announce a patent of AEW Collision, which would lead many in the wrestling community to sort of speculate that Warner Brothers Discovery will be giving the green light to Tony Khan to put on a show on Saturday evenings. Now, again, the time slot has not been established yet, but there's rumors anywhere from 6 to 8 p.m. to 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. on a Saturday, sometime in mid to late June, after the end of the NBA Finals, after the end of the Stanley Cup Finals, hopefully after the Devils win their fourth cup, let's hope.
Let's go Devils.
Let's go Devils. But it seems like it's a show that probably could debut in Chicago. And obviously, we'll talk about, the main event topic this week. But certainly AEW feels confident that they can bring back a certain Phil Brooks, a native of Chicago, Illinois, to headline that program, theoretically called AEW Collision. It's got the wrestling community in a frenzy on Twitter and all social media, Pat.
Well, Fern, I got to say, Tony Khan, he's in quite a pickle.
I
think I think it's kind of weird, man. I mean, like, they inadvertently are doing a brand split, aren't they? Like, if you kind of think about it.
Seems like it, yeah. Seems like it.
To me, man, I mean, look, it's not me, right? I can't say. I'm not CM Punk. I'm not Kenny. I'm not the Bucks. I'm not Hangman, Moxley, Jericho, any of those people that are involved. Tony Khan, none of those people involved, right? But I just think this shit's fucking childish, bro. Like, they got to make separate shows for them to be on because this shit can't be smoothed over. And you people are trying to be taken seriously as a big wrestling company. And not only that, but you're trying to potentially sell out Wembley Stadium. And look, it's a fucking tall task. Let's be honest here. But you got to have, pretty high expectations. I mean, the expectations were high enough where Khan went out and he's trying to do this, right? So that being said, man, I just think that this whole thing is just way too childish. It's gone on for way too long. The fact that they have to split it into two shows, two separate crews, people that Punk like, people that the Elite like, this is nonsense, dude. I'm sorry, man. And I get that there's a lot of bad blood there, and I understand it, but this ain't the first time that there's been bad blood in the history of the business. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, but Pat, I think that, again, while the term brand split hasn't been used, I think from what I'm reading, it just seems like, and it's weird to me that Warner Brothers Discovery thinks it's a good idea to put more content out there. I understand you want to put some programming out there. Again, after the NBA season ends and the NHL, obviously TNT/TBS are not going to, they'll have content. They have plenty of shows. But the idea that, and we'll get into the ratings later, obviously, after another bad week for AEW, it just seems like, are they just trying to force feed this now down the throats of wrestling fans where they think that a third show during the summer months, again, listen, if it's 6 to 8, it'll pique my interest. I'm having dinner, whatever, 8 to 10 on a Saturday. Dr. Ebay's out and about, rooftops, day drinking, I don't know, whatever. It just seems like, again, getting Punk to headline it, I think would be a good idea. To your point about it being a brand, again, I don't know that for sure. I was doing my research over the weekend. I didn't find anything specific that said as a certainty, but I just think that why don't you focus on maybe making Rampage a 2-hour show as opposed to like just an hour, and maybe with Dynamite. Listen, Tony Khan has over, I looked it up, I think he has over 200 wrestlers to contract, okay, male and female, okay, and between AEW and Ring of Honor, you would think that with that many people under contract, they're not getting enough TV time. Wrestling on Dark and Dark Elevation on Monday and Tuesday on YouTube, I almost cringe at thinking of what those metrics are for those shows because I don't watch that. I'm watching Jesse Waters on Fox News at 7 o'clock on Monday. I'm not watching Dark. Same thing on Tuesday. I'm watching, it baffles my mind that why don't you get to work on what's wrong now instead of, let's have another show on Saturdays during a part of the year where people's attention span as the weather gets nicer are not going to be home.
Right. Well, Fern, I think they're very convinced that they have big stars potentially lined up for that show. And the ambition and apparently the delusion to some extent is pretty fucking high. People are going to be out and about in the summer, man. They're going to be doing stuff. Nobody's going to want to hang out and watch AEW for 2 fucking hours on the weekend. The marks maybe, because none of those people get any anyway, so they're probably going to be inside. And it's not like they have much of a social life outside of their smelly room. So it's like, I don't understand why do it there. Rampage, if you add an extra hour to it, it's going to run from 10 to 12. That's tough, man. Yeah, that's tough. Yeah, so I don't know, man. I just think that this kind of has potential disaster written all over it, And I think that inevitably something's going to go down on the show with Punk, whether with Punk and FTR or just whoever. Something's going to happen where somebody's going to do something. Punk's not going to like it. And now you have, a replay of the same situation again. And I don't know, man. It just spells disaster for me. I don't know.
I think perfect word to use, disaster, because I just think that if the goal to get to Wembley Stadium, which again segues into the next story I wanted to touch upon with you, is apparently this week it was announced that there were 45,000 email signups for potential tickets, which to me is nonsense, because why would you publish something like that as opposed to, like, for example, WWE also announced this week, coincidentally, that 30,000 seats were sold for SummerSlam at Ford Field later on in August. Now, let me preface this by saying that for anyone that understands about ticket sales in any sort of sporting arena or entertainment venue, I mean, a large portion of that 30,000 are ticket brokers, okay? Right. So a lot of these companies like TickPick, which, by the way, folks, I recommend all the time to everybody because they're the only online website that doesn't include fees to you purchasing a ticket for a concert, for a sporting event, whatever, as opposed to
sponsorship.
StubHub, Vivid Seats, Ticketmaster, a few other websites I'm drawing a blank on. But the point is that, a lot of those 30,000 seats have been, for the most part, been brought up by ticket broker companies. Okay, that's one thing. And fans will buy accordingly because it's SummerSlam, it's a marquee event. Okay. What drives me crazy in sort of online debates with friends of mine, whether it's my friends from grad school that, we go back and forth, or other people that on social media that'll engage me, like, why would you publish 45,000 email signups? Like, shouldn't you be selling tickets now? Like, the idea of an email signup, like, what does that mean? Pat, you could create you could create 4 emails in 3 minutes on Gmail, on Yahoo, on AOL, or whatever. That doesn't mean anything. So I don't understand why, the premise of that's how you see the distinct difference between these two companies. One that is a serious company that can throw metrics at you like, hey, we've already sold 30,000 seats. Again, take it with a grain of salt because, again, a lot of it's ticket brokers, as opposed to like, oh, we have 45,000 email signups waiting for tickets. You should be selling tickets now.
Yeah. No, I agree with what you're saying, but I think they're also kind of trying to figure out the configuration for the venue. You understand, like the configuration for the stadium, and that's what I think they're doing in the meantime until they do that. Yeah, so that's kind of why they do it, because how they're going to configure the arena or configure the stadium, has to be determined. So I understand what you mean by saying that, but I think that there's a process to that.
But Pat, they've also, I'm sorry, I'll let you finish.
No worries.
They've also dug themselves into a hole because when they made the announcement about Wembley Stadium, they specifically said, hey, 90,000 seats. That was done on purpose. If you didn't want to run the risk of coming up empty on that, you wouldn't mention it. You would just say, oh, famous Wembley Stadium in London, England. Great. But the minute you decide to put that stat on the screen, hey, 90,000 seats in Wembley Stadium, what you're inferring, okay, what you're going to lead most rationally cognitive people to deduce is that, oh, they're going to sell 90,000 seats. And that's not going to happen. There's a lot of things that I believe in. One thing that I can wholeheartedly believe in is that I don't think there's enough of a wrestling following, whether it be in the States. To your point last week about, there's a big following for indie wrestling in Europe.
Yeah.
90,000 seats. That's a tall order. And again, just the 45,000 email signups alone. And of course, all the propagandists like Meltzer and Alvarez and Sean Ross Sapp and some others are like, oh my God, look, they already have 45,000 signups. Like, that just shows you they mean business with this show. I'm not buying it.
So I saw we had a comment from the In the Dungeon podcast with Stu Hart, and they said something about configuring the stadium or something like that, where you put the ring in the middle in the stadium circuit. You have to take fire codes into consideration. Okay, I know a thing or two about codes, and you have to consider fire codes and safety. So that's a big reason why they have to kind of configure it a certain way. And I'm sure that the requirements in the United Kingdom are different than here. That being said, I'm telling you, man, I do believe it. This is the one time where, like, I'm leaning towards like the bullshit that they're saying, because it's really, really big in Europe, especially the UK. There's a lot of indie scenes that are kind of starting to blossom over there. You have Germany that has a thriving indie scene. You have England that has a thriving indie scene. France is coming up. Italy's coming up. Spain's coming up. Ireland, Scotland, you know what I'm saying? Northern Ireland. Like, you got it all over Europe. And again, everything's so close together that it's like 3-4 hour train ride from like, let's say maybe Germany to like England or whatever, maybe even less. You know what I'm saying? It's quick train rides for all these people to go over there. You know that Tony Khan, I think that they're going to do 25, 30,000, right? That are going to be paid, right? Like, so that's what they're saying. Let's say 25,000, right? 25,000 people, right? That are on this waiting list on the emails. You figure Tony Khan's going to give about 10,000 away to charities, probably to Fulham, to his football club or something associated with it for people that want to go. And that's in London too, his team. And then, you know, you got comps for like people that are over there, business partners, all this stuff. I mean, remember, this guy's got a flag planted in the UK already with his team, with his soccer team, you know, his football team, Fulham Football Club. You know, he's got a flag planted over there. So he's already got people out there. Okay. So you figure he gives away another 10 and then probably another 10 that are bought from people that aren't from England or aren't from the UK or Ireland. And, you know, like, bro, they're going to get 40 to 45,000. Now, look, 90,000 might be a stretch. I don't know. The other thing we got to consider too is if he wants to get close to that mark, then he's going to, and the keyword's mark when we're talking about Tony Khan, he's going to have to really give those tickets away. Like, he's going to have to give a lot of like, it's got to be so ridiculously affordable that it's like you're going to pack the place. And look, if there's one thing that we know about Tony Khan, he doesn't care about taking a fucking loss if it means that he's going to look good in the eyes of the wrestling fans or in the wrestling world. Sure, you know, you look at that Arthur Ashe show, the first one that he did, you know, it was a bit of a gamble. They had $6 tickets that day, dude. You know what I'm saying? He didn't care about that. He didn't care about taking a loss because at the end of the day, it's making him look and it's making the company look like it's bigger than what it is. So I think that Europe is a good place for them to do it. Obviously, you know, they're not going to fill up the stadium. You know, the Jaguar Stadium in the US, you know, that's not going to happen. No. And, you know, technically that would be way more affordable. And something is telling me that, remember, Tony Khan's got a stadium in London too. He's got Craven Cottage where Fulham plays. Oh, yeah. That's right. I don't know, like, you know, how many seats there are there, but you want to think it's maybe 15 to 16,000 plus you crowd another fucking 20,000. I mean, it's basically the same thing you got here. Something is telling me that they know more than what they're letting on. And the fact that they went for Wembley and not for Craven Cottage says that they could do a good number there. So let's see where this goes. But I mean, look, you have all the rights to be skeptical, and it's understandable. I'm just saying, I think that there's more than meets the eye here, and let's see how this pans out.
No, definitely. And again, what's going to headline that show in August remains to be seen. A lot of speculation, which we'll get to in a moment. Let's switch over to some WWE news this week here. WWE CEO / President Nick Khan discussed the future of WWE Creative, obviously after some speculation this week about a potential behind-the-scenes role. So apparently, following the April 3rd edition of Raw, reports were indicating that Vince McMahon, again, this is by WrestleTalk.com, was, quote, firmly back in charge at this show despite stepping away from his creative duties in July of 2022. According to Nick Khan, the most powerful Khan in pro wrestling, I would argue, he has not been backstage for some of the more recent shows, including the past week's April 14th SmackDown. Mm-hmm. Speaking on the Light Shed Live podcast this week, Nick Khan stated that WWE is lucky to have Paul Levesque running creative. Stating that Triple H will remain the sole chief content officer, Khan said specifically, quote, when this deal was officially announced Monday morning, Vince sent out a company-wide email to our 1,000 or so employees, including myself. And in the email, he laid out the structure of the new code, which certainly you guys have read about and are familiar with. In addition to Vince being the executive chairman, Ari Emanuel being the CEO, Mark Shapiro being the president, Dana White continuing as president of UFC, and me at WWE, specifically Vince articulated that Paul Levesque will remain the sole chief creative officer. Sole. And he said that, he made a point to reiterate that during the podcast interview. So how does it work? Does that mean because I'm technically in charge of the business side of the business that I don't seek input from other people? Question mark. Or wouldn't I seek input from Vince McMahon who created this entire empire, ? That will be a mistake on my behalf. Paul and Vince have a family relationship, a relationship that stands back to the mid-90s. Paul's in charge of creative, end of story. It's interesting. It's interesting for Nick to go out there on an interview and say that. And let's be fair. Listen. Either way, he could have said that he isn't or he is. There was a good portion of the Mark community online on wrestling Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wherever else that were not buying it and base it on what we've been seeing these last few Raws and SmackDowns. And at the end of the day, Mark's going to complain. They lived a bit. It's like I mentioned on my Monday show, like certain people of the political aisle in New Jersey, they lived to bitch and they bitch to live. That's what Marks are when it comes to wrestling, Pat.
I mean, you are too. You know what I'm saying? I think we all are, you know. You bitch to live, you live to bitch. You know what I'm saying? You're doing your thing just on the other side. It's the same shit here. We're bitching too. You know what I'm saying? So it's like everybody fucking does it. But this goes out to the Marks right now. Hold on. I got to play this for the Marks.
Uh-oh.
This goes out to you, Marks. Vince is gone now. He's out of creative. Your boogeyman's gone. Somebody snuffed his light out. All right? Michael Myers is gone. You guys don't have to be afraid anymore. And from now on, when you don't like something, when you don't like something on the program, you can blame Triple H because now you know. Now I know there's going to be some people, right, you know, that are going to complain, you know, certain people from New York. Hey, I'm PV from New York. You know, I actually wear a hat of the team that comes from New York right here. You know, I'm not wearing some other team that plays in another place. So I'm PV from New York, and I'm not going to fucking complain about this. All right. If there is a problem with what you're seeing on your television now, people, you can point the blame at Triple H. It's not Vince McMahon anymore. Your boogeyman's gone. So I just wanted to say that, and I just want to get that out of the way. Thank you, Professor.
Well, no, I mean, and this is the thing, though, Pat, because what's really funny about Nick Khan having to go on a podcast this week, and I actually looked at some metrics there. I mean, it's a pretty reputable podcast. It's not like he was on Wrestling Observer Live or something. But it just seemed like, you know, maybe not so much semantics, but maybe, again, Nick Khan is a very, very smart business guy. He came, again, being an agent to a lot of prominent people in Hollywood and in the business sector to what he's doing now. And it's just funny to me where it's almost like he felt compelled to go on a podcast to address this, where, again, in all our years of Vincent K. McMahon being on social media, you never saw Vince ever even acknowledge or address things that, for whatever reason, right? And mind you, the Marks this week were like in their glory because it's like, well, you know, Vince and Stephanie and Paul and Shane came on that Raw back in 2018 and said, we promise things are going to get better. We want to make you, the fans, happy. And that's all the Marks needed online. Say, oh, that was 2018. And 5 years later, nothing's changed. They're not interested in making us happy, which is nonsense. So I just thought it was interesting that the Nick Khan felt compelled to go on a podcast this week to address it, where we talked about it last week. Again, the corporate structure of WWE hasn't changed. The personnel structure in terms of how that company operates. Nick Khan is the president and CEO. There's a COO. There's going to be a CFO. And again, the CCO remain the same. If they were going to change those corporate titles and those positions and either downgrade somebody or replace somebody altogether, again, that has to be stipulated by law. It has to be put out there. So to me, it's like, again, I don't want to feel like I'm teaching business 102 here. But these are things that a company, a publicly traded company, still has to acknowledge. So whether or not Nick felt the need to do that because, it's a publicly traded company, they wanted to squash rumors, at the end of the day, legally, if they were going to do that, that would have been announced weeks ago, Pat, when the merger with Newco, right? So I just think that it certainly wasn't to appease the Marks. I just think it was like, well, he probably knew he was going to get asked this on the podcast. So he said, well, let me answer it as detailed. And if you notice, he was emphatic and defiant, like soul, that still wasn't enough for Marks.
Nah, not at all. And let me tell you something. Speaking of compelled, I'm feeling compelled to finish the rest of this delicious Grillo's pickle. You want to check out Grillo's pickles, all right? Fantastic pickles at a great price. Some of the best pickles, probably the best pickle I've ever had, okay? And I know AEW fans, they like pickles.
AEW fans like classic pickles. Those breaded butter pickles. I should know. I would know. I'm an AEW All Elite guy.
I could tell. I mean, I like pickles. I like the dill pickles the best. But getting back to the actual topic that we were talking about, it's interesting because like Khan, I think they did that more to kind of just like stick it to Dave Meltzer, to kind of be like, hey, this guy's full of shit. He's always been full of shit. He's always going to be full of shit.
So they're not down with the Melts no more.
I don't think so, man. I mean, they take his phone calls, you know, like here and there, like I think when they do the quarterlies and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But I mean, like aside from that, I don't think he's really like high on their list anymore.
He should have stayed neutral, bro. He should have stayed neutral.
Well, but I mean, again, bro, like when you're sitting in a certain position or in a certain ranking or a certain standing with the modern day wrestling audience or with AEW fans or like with the executives at AEW, you know, you kind of want to stay in that good standing. And that's what it seems like. It seems like he's in good standing with them. I just don't think that he's being intellectually honest enough as a journalist. And, you know, our partner here on the show, he knows a thing or two about being intellectually honest. He's
top 10 Latino, bro.
Is he top 10? I thought it was top 100.
He's top 10 now, bro, I think. Or is it top 1? I think he won top 10.
I heard he was top 7 Latinos. I don't know. But
he's moving up. He just made the list, dude.
Yeah, he made the list a few years in a row. But I think that Khan did this because, like, you know, he knows that Meltzer's reporting this. These people see this. They know this stuff. They know what's going on. They know that they know that SRS, they know that a lot of these pro AEW guys are putting that stuff out there. And I think that, you know, they see that and they're like, okay, cool. This guy thinks that he's on the ends. He thinks that he knows what's going on in our company. Let me go out there and let me tell people what's actually happening in our company. And he did. And a lot of Meltzer's, you know, stuff that he was going on a rant about, it's gone. I mean, you know, Fern, you remember some of the tweets that were out there that they were talking about, you know, Vince is in Gorilla. He's back in Gorilla. He's back in creative. Mm-hmm. And you know, if you don't like this, this is what the product's going to be from now on. And it was just insane. But I mean, this was the operation that they had in mind months ago anyway, a lot of these guys, because anything that's pro WWE, anything that's good that WWE is doing, they're going to find a way to sabotage it. They're going to find a way to try and undermine it. They tried it with Sammy, with Cody, right? Was Cody pop any fucking less at WrestleMania or at the Raw after or anytime since then? No. Every time that Cody goes out there, the crowd loves him. They're into him. The crowd's still into Sammy. The crowd's still into Roman. All these guys are still over. They're still selling out stadiums. They're still making big numbers. Nothing's been changed by this. But yet AEW fans and these journalists, these so-called journalists, try to create this narrative that everything's horrible in the E. Nobody wants to go there. Jay White didn't go there because he heard Vince McMahon was going to be there. Really, bro? Really? You really think that Jay White's some fucking mark? That he's going to go and be like, I don't want to go there and work with Vince McMahon? Bro, if you're in a field, you wouldn't want to work with the guy that revolutionized the field, that made the field everything that it is nowadays. Why? Because you didn't like his fucking booking? Give me a break, man.
I mean, again, Khan said it. He created this empire. I mean, so it's this notion that the marks, and again, a lot of these mark journalists and dirt sheet writers are going to die on that hill. They're going to die on that hill.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sticking with Nick Khan in that same podcast this week, though, Pat, he commented on the possibility of Blood returning to WWE television following the company's endeavor. With Raw and SmackDown currently running with TV PG ratings, many of the occasions in which you've seen blood on WWE television has not been deliberate. Speaking once again on the podcast this week, Nick Khan indicated that NBC Universal may be supportive about an edgier final hour of Monday Night Raw. When asked about blood potentially returning to the hour time slot, Khan said, look, quote, we're specifically talking about the 10 to 11 hour on Raw. We're specifically talking to NBC Universal and ourselves about what we do with that moving forward. We ask, what do we do if we tweak this, that 10 to 11 hour? It is basic cable. It's not broadcast, as you know. We think that NBC Universal will be supportive, but we're not on a final conclusion on that. For anybody who's not aware, NBC Universal owns USA Network, the current home of Monday Night Raw, since 1990. Well, not consistently. They've been on other channels, but for the most part, since 1993. And WWE SmackDown notably airs weekly on Fox broadcast television. Ahead of the upcoming TV deals that are already expiring, it was announced that Endeavor has acquired a majority stake in WWE and will merge the company with the UFC again to form one sports entertainment company. Pat, we've talked about it off the air. I don't think it'd be a bad thing. Certainly when we watched WrestleMania and that really great Hell in a Cell match between Edge and Finn Balor, certainly in previous years, when we've seen gashes being opened on people's craniums, you never saw stoppage for any reason. You never saw sort of going away from the camera, one of the stars being smart, sort of taking out weapons, buying time for medical staff to open the Hell in a Cell door, to implement staples or a numbing agent on someone's cranium or orbital bone to address bleeding. Listen, I think we've all seen the pictures of Finn Balor's. The top of his skull required 50 staples. Okay, I've had staples. It hurts. Only a few. I can imagine 50. I don't think it'd be the worst thing in the world. I think, especially if we're having matches like Hell in a Cell, no one's saying we need Triple H and Batista, where it was just like flowing like a faucet. But I think in matches where obviously there's an inference that it's going to be violent, such as Hell in a Cell or a street fight, or Last Man Standing or No Holds Barred, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I get it. It's a TV PG rating. For years now, going back to Vince and now under Paul and Nick Khan, it seems like they've been reluctant to sort of elevate that rating. Again, it all sort of goes into what NBC Universal wants and what Fox wants. And if that's not what they care for on television, and mind you, they have broadcast programming like dramas and other shows that do invoke blood and violent situations. Maybe they don't want to go that route with this programming. I don't think it'd be the end of the world. Again, the idea of watching Hell in a Cell and a stoppage for whatever amount of minutes because the medical personnel has to attend to someone, that's not what, again, times have changed. They'll evolve. When we talk about Hell in a Cell or a cage match, that's not what we've come to, I guess, enjoy about it as a pro wrestling fan. I don't think it's the end of the world if they allow some blood, but again, not like, Jamie Lee Curtis in Prom Night either.
Here's the thing. I think if you want to see blood, I think you should cut your forehead open on your show. And,
I swear to God, I can't. I
think it's easy for people to say that they want these guys to cut their foreheads open again when ain't none of y'all ever cut your foreheads open, okay?
I'm too pretty to cut my forehead. No, thank you. I'm too pretty.
Okay, well, Ric Flair thought he was too pretty to cut his forehead, but he fucking did it anyway. Yeah, Shawn Michaels thought he was too pretty to cut his forehead, but he did it anyway. You know what I'm saying? Look, I think it's subject to the boys and girls. I think if they want to do it, if they feel like it's going to enhance the storyline, that's fine, I just think that you don't want to get excessive with it and you want to make it mean something, unlike the other show where, nothing really means anything anymore. And, people just get their heads busted open and, go through a table and hit 14 Canadian destroyers off a balcony,
a 960 splash.
Yeah, and it's like a fucking hammerlock for the crowd. Like nobody pops, like nobody does anything. So I don't know, man. Look, I just think that at the end of the day, it's up to the talent and it's up to the people in charge and the producers. If they feel like it's going to be something that's going to add to the program, do it. Why not? But it would be interesting to see, and I think it would be really, really fascinating to see on WWE programming, especially after so long.
No, I agree. And again, as you mentioned, I think that it's really the premise of like we haven't been used to it. They've gone a specific creative direction about how to address it. And in moments like, again, where it hasn't been deliberate, it's just been inadvertent, case in point, again, the Hell in a Cell, or let's say when Lesnar, I think, 10 years ago, that's right, in the lead up to their match at WrestleMania 29, when Lesnar was about to jump Vince McMahon, Triple H came out to rescue him, and he threw Lesnar into that post. That wasn't deliberate. It was just inadvertent. Lesnar, if you remember, got, that shot on the side of his head. He got busted open. And pretty much like they made a point during that entire time. And again, TVPG, they blacked it out, I think, black and white, I think, during certain parts of the show. I don't know. I think that if it happens inadvertent, it's not the worst thing in the world. But again, like you said it before, we're not privy to those meetings behind the scenes with NBC Universal and Fox Broadcast where, Nick Khan's on a conference call and say, hey, listen, I get it, this shit happens, but let's not make it the norm. We don't want it to be like overly pervasive. But again, like when I was watching Hell in a Cell with you, I was just like, really? Like we're cutting out to have this guy attended to by a medical person? That's not what we're used to with a Hell in a Cell match. Again, different time, different premise, the way the match is set up.
Right. I
would just think that it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but if he's being, forthcoming that maybe an edgier 10 to 11 hour on Mondays, I don't think that'd be a bad thing either, though, Pat.
Again, I just think it's all about using it to amplify the program, not just doing it because you can from now on. Sure. I just think that's kind of what's taken a little bit of the shine away from AEW for me. And also getting back to Finn Balor for a second in Edge, I mean, Finn got his head busted open pretty bad, man. I would say probably worse than anybody in the Hell in a Cell, not named Mick Foley. I mean, Mick Foley, that was a whole other separate situation. Plus, Mick Foley was Mick Foley. He was fucking crazy. He didn't give a rat's ass about anything. So I think that the situation was really serious to the point that they had to cut away so that they could give Finn the medical attention necessary for him to be able to finish the match. But again, like, anything that's kind of done to excess, in terms of like, some sort of vulgarity or, some sort of extra violence, some blood, whatever, maybe a little TNA or something like that. I just think that stuff like that should be kind of reserved for when it's needed and not just done because it could be done like the way they kind of do in AEW. AEW just kind of seems like, hey, well, we could fucking bleed. We could say shit. We could say all this stuff, and we're just going to do it, because we can, you know what I'm saying? Like that to me is just, pretty ridiculous. And again, I just think that it gets done to the point where it loses its value. Like a lot of other things lose their value there,
Sure.
like high spots, for example, all these big high spots, all this big stuff that they do it so often and they do it, to the point where it's like, it doesn't really mean anything anymore. And I mean, look, a lot of it has to do with the modern style of wrestling. A lot of it has to do with the fact that, you're playing to a mark audience there that's kind of seen it all, done it all. And, they want to see more. They want to see you do something different. They want to see you take it farther than the person did before, But the problem is that people have to remember these are not video game characters. These are not action figures. These are real human beings that have families, that have lives, that have bodies, that have, health that they have to take care of, Nobody's going to be there to drive, El Hijo del Vikingo to fucking therapy when he's fucking 40 something or change his adult diaper or fucking, be there to take him to the acupuncture specialist or whatever the fuck it is so that he can get the help that he needs. Nobody's going to be there to buy Kenny Omega's fucking disposable diapers if he fucking needs them because he's so fucked up from all the injuries that he sustained from wrestling all these years and doing it the way he does. Nobody's going to be there for that shit. Yeah. So I think it's really convenient for fans to want this stuff.
Yeah.
And then for the talent to really go out there and do it and kill themselves and shorten their careers in the process and close the window on them making a lot of money, in the long run. And again, when you think of this, you got to give a guy like MJF so much credit, man, because this kid is so young and he gets it. And he can go and he could do all the fancy shit. He could do all the other bullshit. And you might not like him. I don't like him sometimes. But, man, you got to give this fucking dude credit, man, because he's so smart the way that he's working and the way he's working that character to get himself over and to keep that audience invested without him having to ever hit a fucking Canadian destroyer.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think it speaks volumes about, as an audience, I think that, they've just become overly demanding. And I think that not knowing really the ill effects that demand that their fandom is requiring when it comes to, excessive spots and everything else. It's really Pat hit it on the head for certain. One other wrestling tidbit here, kind of interesting, disappointing for me because I was looking forward to this when it was announced. I was marking out for it, but WWE did announce this week that they will be replacing the King of the Ring and the Queen of the Ring theme to the PLE show in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia later in May, and replaced it with Night of Champions. As this journalist accurately called the prediction for WrestleMania 39, obviously, Roman Reigns would retain simply because there's a merchandising gold mine there as he would approach 1,000 days. It's my understanding that coming up by the basically the Memorial Day weekend, I think it's that Saturday, Roman would be approaching 1,000 days, and obviously renaming the PLE to Night of Champions. A little bit different than what Clash of Champions was, or what Night of Champions has always been like, having every title defended on the PLE itself.
That shit sucked. I was never a fan of the Cloud.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of that either. But I wasn't happy, and I know a lot of people on online on Twitter were not happy as well about the omission of King of the Ring and Queen of the Ring later on in May from Saudi Arabia. I was excited again. King of the Ring has been one of those pay-per-view back in its day, it was a pay-per-view, it wasn't PLE. But, King of the Ring was great because it helped to elevate certain guys into iconic roles and moments, whether it was Steve Austin, even going back before Steve Austin, looking at Owen Hart and look at the impact that making him the King of the Ring in 94 did to his career. Certainly in 1996, obviously with Austin, we saw what it did for Triple H in 1997. Not so much for Ken Shamrock in 98 or King Mabel in 95, nor Billy Gunn in 99. But listen, in 2000, man, Kurt Angle was on a roll already that year, holding 2 titles simultaneously, winning the King of the Ring. It was a good pay-per-view to have. The tournament on one night, I think, was always interesting. It was always fun to watch. Obviously, you had the not the undercard, but you had the supplemental matches, normally a title match or two. I always liked it. I was disappointed that they will be removing it and replace it with Night of Champions. But again, as I called it, Roman Reigns would retain because, again, as 1,000 days would approach, it'd be a merchandising money storyline gold mine. And that's fine. My only issue with Night of Champions is if we're going to go with the premise of not just honoring Roman, but if we're going with the regular premise of every title being defended, that could be a problem because it kind of feeds into not the conspiracy, but the speculation that next week, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens might be dropping the tag titles to the Usos because, as we all know, Sami Zayn cannot travel to that ass backwards part of the world. And I think Kevin Owens has also voiced opposition to going there as well. So, I don't want this title run to end for Sami and Kevin, but it seems like it might happen just to sort of maybe coincide with what Night of Champions represents, Pat. But I get it. You want to push Roman in 1,000 days. I would have loved to see King of the Ring, Queen of the Ring as a standalone PLE, but maybe next year.
All the marks are crying. They took away the King of the Ring.
But it elevated Austin. It elevated Owen. It elevated.
Okay.
Those were good.
Yeah. That was a fucking lifetime ago, bro.
Okay, but they still elevated. King Barrett, Sheamus.
Oh, Wade Barrett got elevated. Yeah.
Well, that's booking.
Sheamus got elevated by that.
Well,
Regal got elevated by that.
Oh, to some extent.
Oh, okay.
Booking I would have done differently, but that's me.
Oh yeah. Well, you know so much about booking, you and all the other marks. The Night of Champions thing, it's kind of tough. They find themselves in quite a pickle.
Woo!
Yeah, dude, it's kind of tough. You would assume, right, that they're gonna make Sami and Kevin drop it.
I hope not, but
I don't know what they could do. Unless
they can't travel there unless you're going to omit the tag title match from the card itself, which wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but
who cares? And that's another reason for the marks to complain. But I think it would be a shame to kind of cut the tag run short. If it's a call that they got to make because they got to make it, then fuck it, they'll do it. But I don't know, man. It would be kind of stinky for them to end that run right now, because I think that they got something good going on.
Yeah.
Again, it all depends on what you're gonna do. You know what I'm saying? So we'll see.
I mean, again, I was looking forward to it. Maybe Paul will bring it back next year. Who knows? Maybe, hopefully. It was always entertaining. It was always a good pay-per-view / well, at the time, it was always a good pay-per-view to watch. I don't think it was the worst thing in the world.
Whatever. Who cares? We've been all right without it. We'll be okay with it. Who cares? You know what I'm saying? It's just like Mark's just fucking want nostalgia. That's it. Oh, you know, like back in mind. Like, whatever, bro. Who cares? It's still going to keep going. You're still going to keep watching.
Listen, it's still a good merch shirt. The original King of the Ring logo, that's still a good shirt. It sells still.
Awesome. That's what they're using it for now. That's what it's worth. Merch money. You know, nostalgia. Nostalgia is selling.
Absolutely. It always does. It always does. Some Raw ratings this week. Raw did dip a little bit after a good strong showing after Mania, a 2.26, which was on the April 3rd edition. The marks went crazy this week. Oh, well, you see what's going on. Is it Vince? Is it Paul? Is it Paul? Is it Vince? And it dipped down to 1.818. Again, there's still a lot of good stuff on television. And I hate to beat this to death, but you know, television consumption has changed dramatically. I think not just for pro wrestling, but I think for a lot of streaming. You know, Raw has been, just looking at for the better part of this year, it's always been, other than the night after Mania, one show in February on President's Day, and a couple towards the end of January, they've all been like 1.7s, high 1.8s, 1.9s. You know, that's still a very good number. And it's amazing to me that the marks want to sort of go on this tangent about, well, you know, is Vince really gone? And look how much it dipped. It was a good Raw. It just was. It was a good Raw. Obviously, we saw new women's tag team champions being crowned in Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan. By the way, nice, I don't want to call it a ceremony, but really nice moment for them this past Friday on SmackDown. Kind of like bring them into the ring, the pyro, sort of highlighting them as you know, as strong women. Well, no, I'm just saying, like, you know, we're all about empowerment, right? And inclusivity and all that other whatever. I thought it was a good moment for them to put the shine on them. I think that this is a team that seems to be over with the crowds, obviously. And we'll get to the SmackDown rating in a moment. But again, a good Raw. You know, the idea that marks want to say, well, you know, it's not as good as it used to be. It's still a strong show. I had good matches on Monday as far as I saw. Yeah, you'll see a dip. You'll see a dip now with the NBA playoffs and the NHL playoffs, and baseball's back in full swing. Again, it's still going to be in the high 1.8s, 1.9s. It'll crack to, again, the idea of 2.5 and up. I mean, it might have to be a really crazy, you know, advertised Raw, but it's not unrealistic. They can still get that number anyway because it's Raw. It's a signature flagship show for wrestling fans. They're going to tune in. And again, the way we watch it, you know, again, I watch the opening segment. If I don't like it, I'll turn on Tucker, you know, and I'll watch his excellent programming. Or I'll put on CNN and MSNBC. I'll put on maybe what's on The Voice because I'm a karaoke fan. I like music. There's no shortage of things to watch on Mondays, but it's still a good number, Pat. 1.8, it's still a good number for Raw.
Yeah, my grandma would have loved watching TV with you, Fernando. You know, look, dude, they're always going to do these kind of numbers. They're always going to do these kind of numbers. They're always going to hit like 1.7, 1.8, probably 2s, depending upon who's on the program. As far as this week's program goes, you kind of got the feeling that maybe Lita is a little banged up legitimately, and she can't go, which is why they probably took the tag titles off of her and Becky. And I think that's also maybe part of the reason why they're accelerating the feud with Trish and Becky as well. I'm actually curious to see where that match is going to take place. It'd be kind of cool if it's in Puerto Rico. That'd be kind of an interesting.
Well, it's rumored that it's going to be SummerSlam, so they might really drag this out. Yeah. That's the rumor.
Maybe they want to give Trish a little bit more time. Who knows? You know, have her, you know, maybe feel a little bit better. I mean, she didn't really look all that great personally. Like when she was in there, you know, I get it. I understand. But I mean, like, these are two legendary female talents. You got to feature them, you know, big. So yeah, absolutely. But yeah, man, nice for Liv and Raquel. That was interesting.
Yeah.
And the thing about them is like, it's good that they're such baby faces that once they get beat by Shayna and Ronda, it's gonna be like really nice because Shayna and Ronda are gonna take those titles off of them because it matches up perfectly.
It would seem so. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's gonna be a really good match. And I think that Shayna and Ronda as tag champs, that's really cool. I think that's going to be awesome.
And it's believable. It's because they're two badass
exactly.
women. They're two badass women.
Yeah.
Speaking about the antithesis of badass and the sheer contrarian perspective, let's move on to AEW Dynamite's rating. And
Dinamita.
Again, another dip. This past Wednesday night, 866,000. Down 11,000 from the previous week at 877,000. That was up from the previous week at 833,000. Again, I mean, just look at these numbers for 2023, Pat. Only two instances where it cropped over 1 million. Now, again, January 25th was 1,003,000. You want to talk about just narrowly scraping by in over 1 million. February, the week of President's Day, 1,028,000. It's been in the nines, but lately it's been in the mid to late 800,000s. And again, for a Dynamite that was featuring a god-awful match, I don't know why this match went as long as it did. Brandon Cutler and Michael Nakazawa, trying to get revenge for their friends in the Elite against the Blackpool Combat Club in John Moxley and Claudio. Orange Cassidy defending the coveted international championship. Coveted against Buddy Matthews. Good match, but again, somehow they think pushing Orange Cassidy as a mid-card champion, being everybody and their mother, is a good idea, but they want to push other guys. But more on that later. Again, a bad rating. A good segment with MJF. Obviously, with Darby Allin, Sting coming out. A lot of the marks were speculating right on Twitter. Oh my God, does this mean maybe Sting wants a title match? No, he clearly deferred and said, "Listen, my time has passed. His time is now." And that's what I was waiting for. Yeah. Not a good Dynamite. Again, we saw in the main event, Brandon Cutler again and Nakazawa getting busted open. Literally got the shit kicked out of them the entire match.
As they should.
It prompted Kenny to, after he cut a promo in his house, saying that they should. And by the way, I mean, I know that we talk about Finn Balor's injury at Hell in a Cell, but if you looked, folks, if you haven't Googled it, please do. The size of the gash right here that Don Callis had after that run-in with Moxley and I mean, my God, that looked like a really deep gash, which I was like, whoa, that was interesting to see Don Callis, sporting some blood. But the point was that Kenny vowed revenge against the BCC. Obviously, in the match, which was funny, it was ruled a no contest, which is kind of interesting, on AEW Dynamite, because I guess, there really aren't any disqualifications. Kenny's music blasted. He came down, and he was looking to threaten the BCC in the ring. Sure enough, the Young Bucks came up from behind, double super kicked everybody. They had a brawl. Kenny Omega pulled out a screwdriver, attempting to insert it into John Moxley's forehead to force some blood, which doesn't really take much on AEW television. Moxley escaped. It seems like they're trying to work an angle for Blood and Guts, their version of War Games, probably coming up next month, maybe before Double or Nothing, between, Danielson and the rest of the BCC against Hangman, Kenny, and the Bucks. I think that's not a good look. That's not a War Games match I'm looking forward to. But it seems like that's where Tony Khan is pushing this angle for.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's not for you. It's probably not for me. But it's definitely for their fan base. Their fan base really, really like that. And obviously, that's the people that they're putting that match on for. I wouldn't pay to watch it. I think it's a waste of a lot of those guys' skills and abilities. But again, this is an audience that really enjoys that extreme type of violence. That it's a lot of the leftover ROH marks, NXT marks, maybe even ECW marks. I mean, it's kind of like, it's kind of like Darwin's theory of evolution. It's like the Neanderthals, and this is where we ended up. So, yeah, man. I mean, look, at the end of the day, all those guys are pros. They've been working this angle long enough where I guess it makes sense, and it means something to their audience and to their base. And yeah, I mean, I can see it being better than what we think it is right now. Look at me being all optimistic about AEW today, huh?
It really, really is. And speaking of AEW also, too, I mean, obviously, aside from the Dynamite ring, which was really poor, I think this will make you laugh. During Memorial Day weekend, when AEW will be in Las Vegas. Again, another ambitious move by them to move from the MGM Grand Arena, where so many, classic Halloween Havocs back in the day, the 90s, for WCW took place. They'll be moving to the T-Mobile Arena, where the NHL's Las Vegas Knights currently play, and potentially a future NBA team, since expansion has been talked about in the NBA. That's a big building. That's one of the bigger arenas in the country. I think somewhere between 18 to 19,000. AEW seems to be optimistic they can fill that building up Memorial Day weekend in Las Vegas. But Pat, I really want to get your thoughts on this. One of the attractions being marketed is Brian Alvarez said there will be a Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez Q&A during Memorial Day weekend there, as there's, as maybe it's the week of Double or Nothing. It seems whether it's at a fan fest or something, Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer will be having a Q&A. I don't know how much they're going to manipulate the questions, the content, who attends, but my God, if it's real fans that want to go after Meltzer and Alvarez, that would be worth money to watch them rip them on stage. Because again, as someone who, I'll sort of draw a parallel here. One of the reasons I really enjoy watching Q&As, like politically, for example, is whether it's Ben Shapiro, the Young Turks, whether it's Matt Walsh or others that go to, let's say, college campuses across the country for Q&As. For the most part, they're entertaining. I like them. I know they're not really something you like to watch, but I like them. They're entertaining. At times they're funny. They're good for clickbait. They're good for those gotcha moments, whether it's the speaker sticking to the audience member or maybe the audience member sticking it to the speaker. I mean, I'd love to see someone stick it to Alvarez and Meltzer, but I don't think that's the type of arrangement they're going to have during this Q&A on Memorial Day weekend.
Well, here's the thing. I think that there's a lot more people that don't like them that let on. You know what I'm saying? I think there's a lot of people that play nice, that are Switzerland when it comes to, the wrestling media. And I think that they've probably been waiting for this opportunity, to be quite honest. I think they've been waiting for a chance for them to be able to kind of, ask them a hard-hitting question. So, maybe right now it might look like nobody's going to do that or nobody's going to be like that. But between now and then, a lot could happen. And I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of people that just play nice now that have been looking for an opportunity like this. So I'm looking forward to it.
I'll give you some info here. So on Eventbrite, the wrestling. What's that?
No, it's bright, bro. That's why I keep putting on the shades.
Oh, okay. So on Eventbrite.com, I did look up some information here. It'll be on Saturday, May 27th, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Pacific time. So basically 1 to 3. 1 to 3. Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez will have a Q&A. One ticket. I'm glad you're sitting down, Pat. And if you're not drinking something or vaping, please, you might want to take a hit after this one. One ticket for the Wrestling Observer section for AEW Double or Nothing, plus access to the Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer meet and greet, plus the Q&A, will be $275 plus a $20 processing fee.
Woo! Wait a minute.
Wow.
Wait a minute. Hold on a second. Now, does this come with fish sticks or a buffet or something like that? Like, what are we getting here?
I'm thinking if we're in Vegas, can we get like some stripper or porn star that's going to come talk to us? Or
no. This isn't the right type of event for that.
Okay, well,
yeah, you don't want to mix business and pleasure for these people. But
there's a meet and greet with them and a Q&A with them for $275 plus the $20 processing fee. That's mind-boggling.
The $20 processing fee. I don't want to do it because the $20 processing fee.
$275 for a meet and greet, which I'm assuming maybe picture or who knows what the hell it is, plus followed by the Q&A. That's crazy. That's just nuts. 200. Wow, I can't imagine $275.
Well, I'll tell you what though, man, it's $275 and with plus the $20 processing fee. And if you go to this fucking thing, you're gonna want your $270 plus processing fee, $20 processing fee worth of time. So I mean, if I was paying to go to this thing, dude, I'd get my money's worth, and I'd ask them some shit that could possibly get me kicked out, but at least it'll be on video. And even if it's not on the video that they can control, then it'll be on somebody else's fucking phone. Obviously, you know that these guys, if somebody steps out, I mean, Alvarez, you could say what you want about him, but he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and the dude could hold his own. You know what I'm saying? So, Tom Lawler's also going to be there. He's a dude that can hold his own. Lance Storm, guy who, was a student of the fucking dungeon, Well,
Pat, just to be clear, it's only Meltzer and Alvarez specifically.
Okay.
In this Q&A, it's just
yeah,
them.
but I mean, those guys might be there too. You know what I'm saying? Because they're all friends and they're all connected, so they might be there. But I think that this is a great idea, and I really, really hope that somebody sees this and seizes the opportunity and gives us something good, because those are two guys, and I would say Meltzer more than Alvarez. Alvarez to me is just like, he's a fan that got into the business, that got trained, that works, but he's a fucking fan. He's not, I don't think he's a fucking wrestler. I don't think he's one of the boys. I don't think he's old school in that sense. You know what I'm saying? Plus, it all depends what he got trained too. You know what I'm saying? It depends who trained him and what. Yeah, but to me, he kind of seems like a guy who's, it's kind of a fucking mark, and, yeah, man, I just think that, I don't know. I mean, Alvarez could talk about the in-ring stuff because he has trained, whether it's good or not, he could at least opine on that because he's actually done it, Yeah. But yeah, dude, I don't know, man.
That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money on Memorial Day weekend when you know that fans are going to be in Las Vegas for the show. Obviously, it's Memorial Day weekend. Yeah. I sincerely doubt that these a lot of these marks and neckbeards are going to some of the pool parties where the chicks are at, which is where I like to go when I go to Vegas and party. So I guess they might have to relegate their money to just meeting Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez and maybe hiring a sex worker or two or three. Maybe it'll be cost effective for them that weekend. Who knows?
Absolutely. Maybe even take a shower too.
Maybe exactly.
That would help.
Especially in some of those nice hotel rooms wherever they're going to be staying. The SmackDown rating this week, Pat, right around 2.49 this week. Pretty much the same as it was the previous week, 2.468. SmackDown, again, another solid number. You're seeing the Bloodline storyline with Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens extend. You're seeing, obviously, Matt Riddle being featured prominently now after his hiatus, certainly pushing forward the narrative about it. He wants to get revenge on the Bloodline due to Solo Sikoa and the Usos laying him out. Strong numbers on SmackDown, dude. I mean, nothing's really changing there. Obviously, you are seeing, as mentioned before, obviously the segment with Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan, really enlightening. I think it was heartwarming to see them. Obviously, two girls who've worked hard to get to where they're at in the business right now. And they are. I mean, I think I'd rather take my chances saying sexy to Liv Morgan's boyfriend than Raquel Rodriguez's boyfriend. I think I'll take my chances with that one. Bo Dallas and Braun Strowman. I mean, I'd get my ass kicked either way, but I think I'll take my chances with the small guy.
Wait, Braun Strowman's hitting that?
Yeah, they're engaged. Yeah,
I love him.
Yeah. By the way, folks, shout out to D-Ron, our amazing executive producer who makes this show possible every single week. So shout out to D-Ron. Pat, again, another good number for SmackDown. No surprise.
Yeah, dude, it's the best show, out there, man. It's the best wrestling show out there. And it's no surprise that they're always going to keep turning in a good number. I think they really got something good going on. You got the Usos back. You're going to have the Usos against Sammy and Kevin next week. That's going to be good shit, man. So no surprise here whatsoever. They just keep, putting out good stuff.
It's great programming. And again, the marks will keep complaining or pontificating. Oh, well, is Vince really gone? Is Paul really putting up, the content that we're seeing creatively? And again, I think you said it earlier during the broadcast that, listen, from a structure perspective, Vince is not involved. And if there are things on television you don't like, you have to kind of come to the realization that you're not liking some things, some aspects of Paul Levesque's creative. And I think fans, I get it. Maybe they're given a lot more leeway, and they're not, they're given a little bit more, I would say a little bit more of a coddling to their fandom of Triple H, because again, they love to jump on Vince and be anti-Vince. There doesn't seem to be this sort of propensity for a lot of marks online to be as punitive or harsh on Paul Levesque, because again, for whatever reason, it's still not a full calendar year that he's been in charge of creative. But again, I keep saying it, as someone who grades for a living, he keeps putting out A content, just like a student that puts out A quality term papers, or keeps, taking exams and doing A work. That's what Paul Levesque is doing. So when fans are complaining now, well, they don't like certain things about what's going on Raw and SmackDown, again, they can't blame Vince. You have to kind of, not you, but generically out there, you have to kind of look in the mirror and say, you know what, I think I need to be a little more intellectually honest and say, maybe I just don't like what Paul is doing, and I should be honest about it, instead of deflecting and gaslighting, or just saying, oh, well, you know what, maybe there's ambiguity here. No, there's no ambiguity. It's Paul Levesque running the show creatively. So if you don't like something, just come out and say, hey, I didn't like this on Raw. Just be honest about it. It's okay.
Agreed, man. I think that this has been a big struggle for a lot of fans lately, especially, the cult ones. I think it's been hard for them to admit that maybe Triple H books things that they don't like. It doesn't mean that it's not good. It's just not for you. Again, like, wrestling is trying to get younger and younger. They're trying to get younger fans. They're trying to get younger people into it. They're not into it like the way we were into it when we were growing up, when kayfabe was still around. It's different now. That's why they have a lot of people in our age range that watch it, instead of people, maybe in my kids' age range that watch it, So it's different, plus they want to watch it differently. My kids can't sit through a 3-hour Raw. They can't really do a 2-hour SmackDown, unless they're there, They could probably take breaks in between, but they want to watch who they want to watch, and they're going to watch it in spurts. So that's why YouTube and these condensed versions that you get like on Hulu, that's the best way for people to watch it, because they get the shit that they want to see without the commercials and without the bullshit, So it trims the fat, it gives you all the important stuff. Anything that's kind of like meh or filler, not really all that great or important, you don't really see it. And, that's the way that people end up watching it. So, yeah, man.
It's, again, good numbers for SmackDown, no surprise. And as we get closer to the show in Puerto Rico at Backlash, which is great, I think WWE Backlash, awesome. I love the promo poster, obviously, with Cody and Brock Lesnar potentially main eventing that show. Again, we'll see what Brock Lesnar has to say tomorrow night.
All right, can I just say something? R.I.P. WrestleMania Backlash, yo. R.I.P. WrestleMania Backlash.
That's
R.I.P. WrestleMania Backlash.
I'm not a fan of making things verbose or long-winded, but what are you talking about? What are you laughing about?
Oh my God! I'm sorry. No. Go ahead. Continue. It's okay.
I'm not loquacious or verbose or long-winded. So I can't. But we'll see. Obviously, in the coming weeks, leading into that PLE in Puerto Rico. Obviously, we'll get an update on Bad Bunny's condition and whether or not, again, it's being reported that
he looked pretty good at Coachella. Except for
right.
Post Malone didn't look good at Coachella, but
let me tell you something. Great thing about pain medication, cortisone shots, numbing agents. It's amazing how you can recover from that bump on the table.
Papi, esos medallas, arroz con gandules y pasteles.
That's it.
Y un lechón asado y un bistec encebollado. That's it. That's what
Exacto. Ahí todo eso se come ahí. Pero, again, SmackDown will continue putting on good shows on Fridays. It's as simple as that. And, again, the reason we don't cover Rampage folks on there is it's just not worth talking about. We're talking about 200, 300,000. Not a good number. And again, For someone like me, on Fridays, as I'm getting dressed to go out and hit the town, I'll have Rampage on in the background, but it's nothing captivating. It's really nothing that captures my attention per se. And again, going back to what we talked about before, adding a third show, I think it could be catastrophic. Speaking of the third show, and again, obviously we talked about a little bit before in the news cycle, but the main event topic this week, Pat, is obviously per Fightful Select, which again, you have to kind of take with a grain of salt. I mean, I find them to be as reliable as CNN or MSNBC or the New York Times. Well, maybe. Apparently, CM Punk is being announced as returning to AEW. Everyone's had something to say this week in the wrestling podcast community, from Jim Cornette and Brian Last to Keeping It 100 with Conan and Disco to Meltzer and Alvarez to Wade Keller to Sean Ross Sapp to JD from New York on Twitter. Seems like everybody has an opinion about CM Punk potentially returning. He's earning $5 million a year. And again, it demonstrates the ineptitude as a businessman by Tony Khan, where you're paying this guy to sit home and collect a check, okay, and you're not using him. And now, some 7 months after the incident at All Out during the media scrum, and let's also point out, obviously, CM Punk has needed time to recover from, I think, what was a torn tricep muscle during that match against Moxley at All Out in Chicago. It seems like there's been a lot of speculation about, hey, if you bring him back and you use him in this really hot angle, maybe Punk teaming up with the reigning and defending AEW World Tag Team Champions, the FTR, potentially the Elite, and maybe that will headline Wembley Stadium. See, this is my problem, though. That's not going – again, if you're asking, hey, Fernando, what could potentially sell out Wembley Stadium or come close to, again, the 90,000 number that they've been advertising – I hate to break it to people. This angle isn't as hot as it would have been late last year. It's not maybe the rumors of, Drew McIntyre's Twitter page went black this week, and maybe there's been no reference to WWE. Who knows? Maybe it's just posturing, working, the gimmick, whatever. It just seems like I don't have an easy answer about what could sell out Wembley Stadium. I just don't think it's going to be CM Punk and FTR against the Elite. I don't think that's going to sell out either. Even if you took, for example, even if you prolonged the BCC and the Elite to make their War Games match headline Wembley Stadium, let's just say for the sake of argument, they don't rush this and they drag it out until the summer. Even that War Games match is not going to help sell out the stadium. So, yeah, Punk returning is big because he's been part of the biggest gates they've ever had in that company's history. It wasn't Omega, it wasn't Moxley, it wasn't Jericho. The top three gates the company's ever had, $1 million gates, were all headlined by CM Punk. So, yeah, you want to bring him back. You want to use his star power. But I think the bloom has fallen off that rose. And I don't think he can rescue how bad AEW's been.
Well, we saw some comments come up there before from the In the Dungeon podcast with Stu Hart. And they were mentioning CM Punk versus Goldberg. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, and obviously I don't think that match is going to happen. I think if they're going to have CM Punk in a match, it's going to be something that makes sense. Maybe Punk versus Kenny. But again, I don't even think that's enough to even headline it. You could do Punk versus Kenny. You could do the Bucks versus FTR and the rubber match. But you're going to need big names. And I think that I would not be surprised if Goldberg's already signed and they're kind of keeping it hush-hush.
I mean, Pat, real quick here. I mean, Kenny and Will Ospreay headlining Tokyo Dome, that's one thing. But the idea that this show in Wembley would need that, I mean –
yeah, but Will Ospreay's from England, man. Will Ospreay's from England, man. He has a big following over there.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, one thing is Tokyo Dome, and it's New Japan, and it was a very, very good match for the prestigious IWGP United States Championship. Again, that's Tokyo Dome. Could they replicate that in a rematch at Wembley, like Ospreay and Omega? I don't know. I just think that the idea that Punk could come rescue this, I think, is far-fetched. And that's not me being a hater. I'm just being realistic. I'm sorry. Continue, bro. I'm sorry.
No. I think that they're going to pack it with a lot of English talent. I think that's really where they're going to go. They're going to pack it with a lot of British talent. And, I think that, they're going to have to do that. And Nice to see our buddy Sean here. Book draws.
Oh my God, Sean Masterson, love you, Sean.
Is it book draws versus Lex Luger in a wheelchair at a pole match? Main
oh
event.
my God, that's just love you, Sean. That was amazing.
Sean, they would break the windows off the place. All right, it would be like hitting the power driver back in the backyard days. But yeah, I just think that he's really going to look to add as many big names as he can on this show. He's going to look for a lot of legends. Any legend that basically isn't in the grave or contracted to Vince, he's going to try and find. And, that's basically what he's going to end up doing, and hopefully he's going to hope to break the windows off the place. So we'll see what happens, but I wouldn't be surprised if that happens between now and then.
But it's also interesting, too, because I think what this is accentuating for us as wrestling fans, too, is that reminder that, again, AEW fans are going to put Tony Khan on a pedestal. They'll think he walks on water like Jesus did, that he turns the water into wine.
Can I say something, though? I think he deserves some credit. I do. I think he deserves some credit for employing wrestlers, for employing production people, for employing a whole bunch of people, and for giving an opportunity for wrestlers to get seen on a national level. I think he deserves that. I'm not going to be a hater and say that the guy doesn't deserve any credit. I just don't think that creatively what he's doing with the talent that he has available is as good as it could be. And that's my problem with AEW as a product. But go ahead.
Well, so, you're right about the business aspect of him, that he provides now a pretty substantial alternative to WWE in terms of compensation. My issue with him as a businessman, too, is the idea that when this happened in September, after All Out, during the media scrum, and we've all heard different reports, everyone seems to have a different eyewitness account of what happened here. And the name escapes me on who CM Punk's buddy is that was apparently in the locker room too.
H. Steele.
Thank you. Where he was, who bit who knocked out who broke down whose door. I get all that stuff. I just think that was a clear indicator that Tony Khan, as a businessman, has to sit down these adults and say, listen, do you want to keep bitching and moaning and be fickle like this is homeroom in high school? Or do you want to make money? Let's convert this into an angle that can make money, that could get views on us, that could sell merch, that could maybe sell out a bigger building. And it just seemed like Tony Khan wanted to acquiesce to Matt and Nick Jackson, to Kenny Omega, even Chris Jericho to some extent, because now apparently Chris Jericho seems to be chiming in on what's toxic in professional wrestling, which I think is rich coming from Chris Jericho. And I love Chris, but the lacking the awareness to Chris Jericho exemplifies is the idea that, listen, and we've heard of a lot of different examples where real world heat was able to be monetized, right? We heard same thing with over the years with Vince's problems with someone like Jim Hellwig, aka the Ultimate Warrior, with Hogan. Again, it's 18 years ago, but think back again. This is right at the onset of YouTube. This is before social media, before Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat. Think about the real life heat between Adam Copeland and Matt Hardy. And think about how the wrestling internet community was on its ears about, oh my God, look at this shit. What's going to happen if they, when Matt crashed Raw and jumped Edge in the back, was that real? Was that orchestrated? That was the allure of wrestling fans, to say, was this real? Is this a work? What is it? Vince was able to sit these guys down and say, listen, I get it. There's some heat here. You're passing Lito around like a condiment during Thanksgiving dinner. Fine. Okay. But do you want to be professionals and make some money off of this? Because we can take this real life heat and monetize it. Vince, again, say what you want, folks. And again, I know the boogeyman is fresh in the minds of so many of marks, but he was able to take adults in the room and monetize something that worked. You don't think in 2002 when Hogan, Nash, at the end of 2001, when Hogan, Nash, and Hall met in Stanford with Vince, that Vince didn't think, oh man, there might be some people in the locker room might be a little anti these guys. Guess what? He got him in there and said, hey, do you want to make money? Or do you own? And he did that. Now, again, we're not going to compare Vince's business acumen and Vince's business superiority to anybody else's, but this is where Tony Khan really exposes himself as not a good businessman. Sit down with Jericho, sit down with Punk, sit down with the EVPs and say, listen, I get it. Nobody likes anybody here. It's high school. student council election time and who's running in homeroom A as opposed to who's running homeroom B. You're adults. Do you want to bitch or make money? Tony Khan just doesn't come across as that authority figure to sit adults down and say, hey, listen, I run shit here. If I want you guys to work together, go in a room, do whatever you need to do, beat the shit out of each other. But when you come out of the room, we're gonna put pen to paper, work out an angle, and this is gonna draw out a pay-per-view. Tony Khan just doesn't exhume that type of, like, I guess, alpha male personality that you need as a businessman. And you know what? And his company's suffering for it.
Yeah, I mean, again, but these are a lot of the structural issues that we've talked about with AEW. You know, a lot of the foundational issues that they had early on. You know, everybody being friends, everybody being pals, it not being so much about a business. And I understand, you know, that, you know, of course, in its infancy, you know, there was a happy, warm, fuzzy, you know, happy-go-lucky feeling. Everybody liked each other. But, you know, after you're on the road with each other, after you start dealing with people, you start dealing with their egos. Because, let me tell you something. These people got egos. Wrestlers have egos.
Yeah.
Okay? They're not like these kind, great people who, like, you know, take off the mask when they're done and all that stuff. No, like, they have egos. They're just like anybody else. These are people who are also business people. They want to get paid top dollar for what they're doing. If they're not booked to do something, they're not going to be there. You know what I mean? We heard Britt Baker recently, and this was kind of making the rounds. Thunder Rosa, you know, on Busted Open, talking with your boy LaGreca there, and talking about, you know, the comment that Britt Baker made on how she wasn't on TV or she wasn't at TV, you know, and she should have been there because everybody else was there. She wasn't scheduled to be there. She wasn't booked to be there. Why should she be there? And I think that that's something maybe that, you know, she didn't understand, you know, and that's a part of the business that's been around forever, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I used to see stuff like that. I used to be like, man, why isn't this guy at the show? He's not booked to be there. That's why he's not going to be there. He doesn't have to fucking be there, even if he's a part of the company, you know, like that's just the way it works. And that even extends to, you know, WWE and
why travel?
AEW. Why
travel? Why book an airline ticket? Why have to pay for a hotel if you're not going to be there? That seems like smart money management, but that's just me.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's like Randy Orton. Like, Randy Orton's hurt right now. Oh, well, why isn't Randy Orton backstage at Raw or at SmackDown and catering? Because Randy Orton's fucking hurt. He's not booked to be there. When Randy Orton's booked to be back on TV, he'll be back on TV. That's it. Yeah. It's that simple. Yeah. But again, you know, they have a lot of foundational issues. Tony Khan never put his foot down, so to speak, as a Vince McMahon kind of character, or, you know, even as other promoters that we've heard of in the past. You know, he hasn't really established himself as a take no shit kind of boss. He just allowed a lot of these people to do what they wanted, and that shit comes back to bite you in the ass. And now he's in a position.
Case in point, look at Jericho kind of being passive aggressive on Twitter about a potential return for CM Punk and whether or not he'll work with him. Like, you don't put that shit out. You don't put that shit out there on social media.
Yeah, but Jericho's been known to work people on social media. Jericho's been known to do stuff like that. You know, I get what you're saying, and I agree with it. And I'm not a fan of Chris Jericho's behavior from what I've been reading and from what I understand his mentality is like backstage. You know, I just feel like he hasn't really been very cool. I don't care if I made the fucking list, but, you know, it's true. And, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the situation with him at all. But I mean, again, like these guys, they got to do whatever the fuck they wanted. They got paid top dollar, especially all the ex-WWE guys, because they all knew the deal. You know, like the indie guys that they signed to join this company, they were all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. You know, they didn't know what the fuck was going on. It was a Disney movie. You know, they were making all this money. They were doing whatever the fuck they wanted. You know, and then, you know, once they ended up staying in Florida for a while, it was like, fuck it. I'm just chilling in Florida. I'm making all this money. I'm on TV. I could do whatever the fuck I want. I'm not going to have anybody from the evil empire telling me what to do, you know? And now, you know, it's like they're basically, AEW's in a position where they have to depend on ex-WWE guys to fill up a stadium and to fill up every other venue that they have. You know, all the homegrown guys that they had, all the guys that should have been bigger than what they are, they're not. And now they're trying to play catch up, you know, and you look at Jungle Boy should have been a lot bigger. Jungle Boy should have been fucking Jungle Man by now. You know what I'm saying? He should have been something else. Darby Allin, Darby Allin's been good, and I don't dislike Darby Allin. I think he's talented. Okay, I think there's a lot of money to be made there with him.
Right.
I think that Sting hasn't really done too much for him, and I know a lot of people like that promo with Sting and MJF. And I don't know. I didn't think I really didn't think it was all that great, and I just don't think that Sting has looked good. Sting's just been diving off a fucking balcony, like fucking New Jack in the '90s or something. And he hasn't really enhanced Darby in any type of way. But in fairness to Darby, he puts in a shift in every match. He's getting more comfortable on the mic. I gotta say, like he speaks with conviction when he's out there. And Sammy's just like AEW's Mark Marrow. Like I don't know, like he's just kind of there, and he's a guy that could have been a lot bigger. But again, like this is what happens when you let the inmates run the asylum. Yeah. And now you're kind of trying to bring everybody back in. But you've also realized the fact that all these guys that you thought were fucking great that you saw in PWG really aren't all what they were cut out to be. That's right. And now you have to go and you have to spend big bucks to get ex-WWE talent to come in and to beef up your company to get it to compete to any point. So, we were talking about a tweet that kind of mentioned something like this earlier. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in 2024 when all those young talents that were promised the world didn't get the world because Tony Khan had to depend on ex-WWE guys that he's overpaying.
Yep, that's right. And I think it definitely, I think it's something to definitely keep an eye out for, not just with like what those signs potentially could be, but I think it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next few months because, again, it seems like all the focus is not just only in Las Vegas for Double or Nothing, but also obviously on Wembley Stadium for All In. And then subsequently, somehow, Mark's going to have to shell out more money or additional money to go watch All Out in Chicago at the United Center during Labor Day weekend. So if you're an AEW Mark, save up those pennies, stop subscribing to some of those OnlyFans of your little girls in your neighborhood, and save up your money because you might have to spend a lot of it this summer if you're an AEW fan for sure. Pat, real quick here on this day in pro wrestling history, something I think you'll be interested to know. On this day, April 16, 1994, New Japan Pro Wrestling played host to the first ever Super J Cup, a 14-man one-night tournament contested by the cream of the crop of the world's light heavyweight wrestlers. In the tournament final, it was won by Wild Pegasus, Chris Benoit, who defeated the Great Suzuki in the final. A little bit of a trivia there for fans.
Great match, man. That's a classic match, man. I remember getting a VHS tape of that tournament back in the 90s. Man, we sound like fucking old timers today. Even me, Mr. Young Hip me, I wear a do-rag and everything. I got street cred. I mean, what a fucking match that was, man. Like, if you guys get a chance to check out that tournament or to find it online, give it a look because it's just packed with so many great matches.
Definitely. Also on this day in pro wrestling history, in 2007, on an episode emanating from Milan, Italy, the Miracle of Milan took place when Santino Marella made his WWE debut and immediately won the coveted Intercontinental Heavyweight Championship. The win came about when Vince McMahon handpicked a fan from the crowd in Milan to face Umaga for the title. Marella won the title subsequently with some help from Bobby Lashley. A really, really interesting and momentous day there in Raw, obviously in Milan, Italy. Also on a sadder note, on this day in pro wrestling history in 2020, longtime WWE ring announcer and one of the company's very first employees, Howard Finkel, passed away at the age of 70. Certainly a sad day for all of us that grew up watching WWF/WWE. So many iconic announcements by Howard Finkel. Remember I had a chance to meet him, I believe in 2019 at I Play America down in Central Jersey by Freehold. Gentleman, really nice guy. We miss Howard Finkel for sure, folks. All this happened on this day, April 16th in pro wrestling history. Pat, as we call it a show, what to look out for?
Man, gonna be having that show coming up with the child actors Chaotician, Eye Destroyer, and Locaine. That's gonna be at the VFW out in North Bergen. I'm always the shits at putting these things over because I just remember it now. I'm not nearly as organized as you are. I have time to tie my shoes. And, I
Do you have Kenneth Cole shoes? Do you have Kenneth Cole men's shoes?
Do I have Kenneth Cole men's shoes? No,
yes.
I got some deals that I got at Joseph A. Banks a long time ago. It's one pair that's been sitting in my closet, and it's there in case of emergency use. Most of the time, I just wear boots everywhere. You know, I wear Doc Martens.
They're not cheap, so they're very high quality men's shoes.
Okay, but I mean, they're not. You don't tie them. I mean, what do you got? Fucking Velcro shoes too? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, man. You know, I don't know, dude. It's a little. And mira, no, ni tiene la correita, like the little belt that's on the top of the shoe, like the old school viejo shoes.
That's as a guy who wears some of the most pristine suits you'll ever see. I know what's in for Men's
Warehouse. Is that where you get it from?
No, I get it from
Burlington Coat Factory, right?
No. I've been fortunate enough to have Expressmen like some of my posts. So come on, man, give me some credit here. Come on.
I mean, you know, I'm sure they do charity, so it's good that they did that for you. You know, but you need to kind of schnazz it up. Your suits are a little, you know, I don't know, man.
Well, I got Nike sneakers for Pier 13 in Hoboken with my cargo shorts for the summer. So
fucking finally, bro.
That's it. There you go.
You have more dad shoes than I do, and I'm an actual fucking dad.
That's it.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm glad you at least did that. But yeah, check out my my Instagram for the flyer for the show. And obviously you could buy pre-sale tickets. We're gonna have drink gimmicks, the whole nine. It's gonna be great. Apparently there's going to be a lot of crazy stuff. We got a roulette wheel. We got a midget. We got cheese, you know, all that stuff. You're going to want to be there. Check out my Instagram at Patty Rican. Don't send me any DMs. Don't message me. Don't text me. I'm never going to return it. So yeah, that's all I got to say about that. Thank you, Fernando. Thank you, D. I appreciate being on the show.
Real quick. Don't log off real quick. I just want to say, in terms of some things I just want to plug real quick. I had the privilege of going to the IWF show yesterday at the Nutley Recreation Center. IWF folks, check out their website, campiwf.com. I was there to see Livewire Charles Gaston, a Union City High School alumnus, also a guy who was a fullback in defensive end for Union City High School, all-state linebacker, obviously, too, for the Soaring Eagles football team. Really, really good young kid, 22 years old. Had the chance to watch him defend the IWF Tag Team Championships yesterday. I'll tell you, man, I like going to indie shows. I like seeing some of this talent. I almost felt like a scout there with my buddy, the Dean, Dante Lupo, as we were there sort of observing and sort of looking at the match and saying, wow, look at this guy. Look at his moves. He's crisp. He looks like $1 million, cuts a good promo. I love going to these indie shows, man. It's as a fan, it's almost going like watching minor league baseball, or if you're a scout going to watch like college football games or basketball games. You like seeing these kids cultivating and working on their craft. And you know, IWF celebrated their 26th anniversary yesterday in Nutley, New Jersey, at the Nutley Rec Center. Great card, a lot of local kids from West New York, Edgewater, but Charles Gaston, the Livewire from Union City and Union City High School alum. Good to see him in action, man. I think this kid's got a good future. He's got a great look. Great physique, he checks off a lot of boxes. I hope to see this kid keep moving up in the ranks on the indie scene, and we'll see. Maybe he gets discovered.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully one day maybe he'll even cross paths with comic book warrior Gabe Baez. Who knows? That might be something to see and look out for in the future. But getting back to what you said about indie wrestling real quick here, you know, indie wrestling is fantastic. It's one of the big reasons I got into the business. You know, and I'm going to send a big shout out to some friends of mine, you know, to Sean, to Jim, and to Mike Minervini. You know, a lot of those guys, you know, we'd go to shows together, man. We checked out all that stuff. They got me into indie wrestling. They showed me Jersey All Pro Wrestling. Big shout out to Angel Martinez, Fat Frank, Glenn Strange, the whole JAP crew. You know, and Jersey All Pro Wrestling was a place where I got to see Bryan Danielson. I got to see Low-Ki, AJ Styles, El Generico, Kevin Steen, Trent Acid, you know, Tyler Black, you know, guys that would become main eventers, CM Punk, you know, the Haas brothers, you know, I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on of future world champions and people that would just be headliners all over the globe for WWE and beyond. So definitely, to everybody listening, you know, check out indie wrestling experiences, support it. You know, stuff like this is really, really big, and it's important for the future of wrestling. And you know, the only thing I could say is just don't become that smelly dork, Mark. You know, take a shower, take a bath.
There were a lot of people.
Women, get fresh air, walk. You know what I'm saying? Do
There
stuff
were a
like
lot
that.
of people. Man, there was some body odor in that building yesterday. Oofa.
Yeah, I'm sure it stunk, and that's a big reason why I don't like to go to those things unless I'm getting paid, so that's the only way that I'll be able to really step foot in there. Fufu, yeah, man. Fufu was another guy, crazy motherfucker. Kenny cut his fucking head open. So yeah, man, check out indie wrestling when you can and support this, and support this craft, because this is how we're going to keep the business going. So yeah, man, great to see that you did that, and hopefully we see those two young talents lock horns, and who knows, maybe both of us will be there. We don't know what the future holds.
Let's try to make that happen here on the show, and maybe reach out some of these promoters as well. Maybe they'll hear our cries for booking. And you know what? Maybe can I book this? I'd love. You can't say I won't book anything other than 2K on my PlayStation. We can book this. This would be awesome.
Yeah, maybe you manage that other kid. I manage Gabe Baez. You know what I'm saying?
Those promos would be interesting. That'd be funny.
They would be.
They would be, definitely. Pat, always a pleasure to do the show with you every week here. Folks, again, before we call it a night, again, I just want to give a shout out to IWF. Great local promotion there. Celebrated the 26th anniversary. Really good gate yesterday. I mean, there's a lot of seats there filled, paid seats, good action there. As I mentioned before, Livewire Charles Gaston, Union City native. He's the current co-holder of the IWF Tag Team Championships with Kevin Knight. He was the IWF Wrestler of the Year in 2021. Big future for that kid, and I'll keep cheering on Livewire Charles Gaston for sure. Folks, as a reminder, coming up tomorrow night, we'll have him. Pat, thank you so much again for joining us here. Always my amazing co-host here on Working the Marks. Folks, as a reminder, tomorrow night on the latest edition of Real Talk with Fernando Uribe via Jersey First TV, I will have State Assembly candidate in the 17th Legislative District here in the state of New Jersey, Demont G. Patel will be joining me. We'll have a lot to say about his campaign, and certainly during this election cycle in New Jersey, as he's looking to win one of those assembly seats down in LD 17 in Central Jersey. I have a lot to say about that, some announcements as well about the program. Tune in, folks, tomorrow night, again, live at 6 p.m. Eastern time on Jersey First TV via YouTube, and also on their Facebook Live page via StreamYard, and also on LinkedIn. Folks, shoot us an email, workingthemarks@gmail.com. Hit us up on all of our social media. Sharing is caring. And, of course, we would not be anywhere without you, our loyal viewing audience every single week. Shout out to our boys Sean, Dante, Jimbo, everybody else, my cousin Dan, everybody tunes in. I cannot say enough, folks, without our amazing, our immaculate, our incredible executive producer, D. Rotten. This should not be possible with the continuity and the cohesion that we have. Shout out to D. Rotten. Folks, again, enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and we'll see you next week here. Folks, if we're talking wrestling and we're talking it better than anybody online, it's always Working the Marks right here with Famcast Media. I am New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist, and for the third consecutive year, a top 100 Latino via Latino Spirit Fernando Uribe saying so long, folks. Again, keep watching wrestling, keep watching Working the Marks, and, of course, always support us on Famcast Media. We'll see you next week, folks, here on Working the Marks via Famcast Media. Have a great night, everyone.
Famcast Media. Bitch. Famcast Media.